Remember that video game based around The Thing? You know, that movie tie-in centered on the 1982 classic about infected people and a cold research base. Well, I guess you can take a wild guess as to why this experience did not get off the ground with the sequel. Luckily for us, there is extensive detail about a good majority of conceptual phases here. The Thing was originally developed by Computer Artworks and published by Konami in 2002. A sequel was already being planned for the game in the following year, with a tentative release date only a year after the first iteration. Andrew Curtis eventually broke his silence when he talked to Eurogamer about the painstaking decision to halt production. We had the contract in place to make the sequel, and we were pretty excited about it. We had a cool prototype of dynamic infection and some really imaginative thing burst outs. I particularly like the one where the person was split in half and their top half would jump to the ceiling and start swinging around like an orangutan with his intestines turned into tentacles. It was heartbreaking when Computer Artworks closed, but it was a familiar story. Unfortunately, we just grew too quickly, taking on a lot of projects including The Thing 2 and Alone in the Dark: The Abductions. The fall of these projects just seemed to stem from Computer Artworks being overly ambitious with the high level of multitasking. Despite the aura of bad news, we have evidence centered on these dynamic transformations. This was the main proving ground for Computer Artworks to intensify every bloody encounter. Andrew Curtis wanted to deliver an experience that overhauled the body assimilation process in full. It was technically demanding, and it was a very hard task to make all these encounters feel different as the thing exploded from limbs, torsos, and orifices that immerses the player with complete shock. Layers involving uncertainty return to this iteration, deciding who is the thing and who isn't carried over into the sequel. Non-playable teammates will have the thing stowed away in their bodies for a long period of time. This sounded like you could be on a routine mission, not really knowing the difference before it's too late. One crucial detail is that the thing had various mutations that spiral from being weak to strong depending on conditions that spark evolution. Once the evolved state reaches critical biomass, the thing would then be capable of hitting the player with more damaging attacks. This would also transpire if you got nailed by one of the new organisms called the Clinger. This stage 5 Clinger probably won't be as soft as a woman, as it wrangles the player's head apart, causing a one-hit kill. The underbelly is full of teeth, which is suited for those grisly death animations. I believe that Andrew Curtis had an idea of multiple ligaments attacking you from individual areas. These new attack patterns stem from separated body parts as the battle raged on. We saw something equivalent to this in Resident Evil 6 when that blue regenerator creature would pursue you with detached limbs. More altered beasts posed a serious threat, aptly named the Bio Beasts and the Sonic Beasts. Their attacks range from toxic gas, high-pitched screams, and acidic properties that gave you a run for your money via splash damage. If this particular Sonic Beast was close enough to the player, then it could tear your head off by the tendons with its mandible grip. From my perspective, this game seemed much harder than the original, since mutated creatures were harder to deal with in scope. Even the structure of the Sonic Beast showed intricate design, since the creature erupted from the entire spinal column. Dogs also suffered a cruel fate, as if they didn't already in the movie.
Well, now that is some fucked up shit.
Now the dog beast was mobile as opposed to being locked in a pen. A detailed death involving an NPC was going to involve him being ripped apart by a pack, serving as a gruesome reminder that you're not the only one being hunted. There was even a point where contaminated flesh wrapped itself around the aircraft carrier. This was likely going to be a boss of some kind called the Ruptures. You could tell that human skin, ligaments, and faces infested the chopper as the entire boat was being consumed here. Taking it back to something small scale, we have a monster called the Scuttler. This little bundle of horror was seen in the original game as a beheaded monstrosity. You can also catch a gnarly mutation of this in the movie as well. The clear difference is that the Scuttler mutation also extended to the annex of the torso, creating a snake-like entity. It was capable of spitting acidic properties near the player if they were foolish enough to get closer. The drag jaw is another biological menace, mostly inspired by a disemboweled hyena. As the name implies, it seems that the drag jaw is able to lift itself in an upright position, using its heavy hands to scuttle and walk across the floor towards the player in an attempt to feed on them profusely. When thinking about the drag jaws here, there were always going to be large variations that had hair on them to differ them from other packs. There's also some pretty sick animations in regards to the aforementioned transformations. This audio detail was never finished, but this is what you have me for. The environments were set to be more ambitious in scope, extending to your boats, prisons, underground maintenance tunnels, boiler rooms, outposts, and snowy vistas that seemed bigger in nature. That still meant that there was no escape if the thing had any say about that. Due to the sheer amount of levels, it was possible that vehicles could be commandeered by the player. After all, the first game did have on-rail sequences, so this is a mean of expansion. I'm fairly certain this could have extended to some broader segments, which involve choppers and a base. The rest is just speculation, but the squad-based trust mechanics would have had a larger emphasis, and I think that would have made sense. The height of the film is the tension between who is the thing and who isn't. I think it probably would have been cool if the blood testing vials would have made it in the sequel somehow, but more than likely, this is probably something that equates to watching how the NPCs react. Deception was going to be a large part within this game. Enemies with coats draped over them might be a freshly assimilated thing if you aren't careful. What appeared to be far from the human eye gets a little uglier up close. The deception involved either people kneeling over, laying down, staying hidden under beds, covered in something, etc. This would have made the game a lot more tense, as one false move would have been your last. It's clear that the story of the game would have been between the two characters, one of them from the movie and the other from a completely different type of breed, an OC breed rather. RJ McCready, who was played by Kurt Russell in the original movie, and JF Blake, who was created as an OC for the original game respectively. It's all relevant roles, so there you go. It's not really known how the outbreak contaminated this small peaceful refinery after defeating Whitley. I guess it'll probably be more in tune with the film. The outbreak is already there as people move from location to location. Blake and McCready just wouldn't know it quite yet. And I would assume there would be some tension between these two characters, who's the thing, who isn't, etc. That's all about the story. That's all about the thing 2 that I have to offer for you today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this lost concept of a Thing sequel, a Thing video game that was going to take more deception, that was going to be bigger in scope, and that was going to be something to behold with things like infected choppers, etc. Let me know what you think about this canceled sequel. Do you think they should revisit the Thing as an idea in the future for a video game? Comment below and let me know, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much for checking out the channel. It's appreciated. I really enjoyed making this video, and check it all out from there. Hit that bell notification, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Later.